right, welcome to the Smarketing Show. We're excited to get going, and we've got a great guest with us today, the one, the only Matthew Schonewille. Matthew, I know your title is AI Integration Consultant. However, from our conversations, you wear many, many hats. So perhaps you could give us a rundown on what you do, and welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, many hats, you can see a lot less hair, so it keeps going away.
It
But
wore them down.
more other one down. Yeah, no, for me, it's been, I'm a business professor, consultant, AI enthusiast, father, most importantly. And
Mhm.
it's one of those things where in the age of AI, there's a ton of opportunities. So it's hard to not see opportunity. And also former business owner. I've owned many businesses doing a lot of different areas in marketing and sales. And you guys are living an amazing age in your specific area with your target audience right now. So it's pretty exciting.
We sure are. And hey, great to have you on. And you've written how many books, by the way?
About 5 or 6 right now. I have about two in the mix, but yeah, most recent is Case Studies Reimagined, writing with AI. So
Awesome. So if you're listening or watching right now, trust me, you're in for a great episode here. This guy can go deep in a lot of directions on AI plus, plus, plus. So Matthew, one of the questions that I would ask you is, when we work with business leaders, and that could be a business owner, maybe a sales leader, marketing leader, let's say a lot of them are, maybe 50, 55 years old. They're running a business, and this AI thing is top of mind for so many of them. And they've got some, Gen Zs or millennials running around saying, hey, you got to get into AI here. We should be using AI here. And I think it's a little murky right now for a lot of them
Mhm.
as to what they should do or maybe shouldn't do. And, I'm sure you get asked that by your clients, so what are you being asked around AI, and what do you suggest, if I may, ask you that when it comes to kind of understanding what you should do, maybe prioritization, et cetera.
great question. So I would say for anybody, and specifically your target audience, understanding that AI is merely a tool, meaning
Mhm.
it's a tool that does not replace. It can replace the menial aspects or certain tasks. But if I was going into business, like when I consult with companies in many different areas, they say, well, what do you do? And it's like, well, I work with AI. And they say, well, how does that work with our company? I'm like, well, let me learn about your company.
Mhm.
And you are experts on your company. Like, you know what you do, you know the process, you know the work. And yes, there are pieces of the work that can be offloaded that AI can do, but it's not going to replace everything. So if you have colleagues or employees that are saying, hey, we should use AI, using it the right way is the most important thing. And using it the wrong way will hurt your business. And for me, it's always about understanding the why we're going to use it before we look at the how.
Mhm.
So when I work with any company, I say, well, wait a second. What are you trying to offload or have the AI do that's going to help you achieve X, Y, Z? What is the thing you're trying to do? No different than when you're consulting with a client. We
Mhm.
want more leads. How does this work? Well, yeah, I want more leads. But why? Like, if you give you 1,000 leads tomorrow, what would you do with them? Well, I don't know. We would be overloaded. Well, then you don't want leads. You want to make more money. So it's really getting to the why of the process and building that trust so they can understand how AI can fit in their conversation, their cog of work, if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
100%. So what are the main questions, that the business leader would ask you consistently, you hear all the time? Because you're seeing a wide array of businesses. So what's the main questions you're being asked, and how are you answering them?
Are we going to be replaced?
Mhm.
And my answer is, if you feel you will be, if you feel you're going to be replaced, you will be replaced.
Mhm.
One of the key things I've had students when I teach businesses, I say, make yourself marketable. And in businesses, it's like, well, make yourself adaptable to your customers so you can fit the needs they have. AI is not going to replace everything. It will replace aspects that are replaceable. And I go back to, well, wait a second here. You have to find out, what is the goal? What are you doing? Companies are always saying it's moving so quick. And it's like, yeah, AI has been around since the 50s. It's not a new concept, but the
Mhm.
technology has been set up in a way now we can actually realize some of these crazy gains. And those gains are way more than we can stay on top of.
Mhm.
And you should be aware, you should be concerned about your company, but not concerned for it closing. If it's going to close, it's going to close anyways. But you should be concerned of, well, how do I utilize these tools to our advantage? Is that making new content? Is that addressing the needs of our customers in certain ways to customize content? Is it going through and doing analysis? Is it really offloading aspects of our admin? How does that work? So companies are always saying, where does this fit? AI can't be a solution for everything. And I agree, it's not. But if you have a creative mind and an open mindset, you can find out the areas that it's actually going to work and be innovative and think through how AI may fit in what you're doing. Because companies are very concerned, and they should be. But
Yeah,
if they're
absolutely.
concerned of closing, then they're probably going to close anyways.
Mhm.
There must be some, so first of all, I must tell you, you're a consultant. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
You know my definition of a consultant, right?
No, I don't. I haven't heard it. Educate me.
Yeah, a consultant is always a guy from out of town, because how possibly can someone in our town know anything more than what we know? So a guy from out of town, that's a consultant. Anyway, someone told me that one time. I thought it was
I
cute.
love it. I love
Now,
it.
when you work with businesses, there must be some kind of low-hanging fruit, we'll call it, that you're like,
Hmm.
oh, you guys, it's a no-brainer. Use it here, use it here,
Hmm.
use it here. Like, would there be kind of like a list that you would look at in a business when someone's not sure how to, where it would play? Like, these are the easy.
Great question. Yeah, great question. So that list is really customized to the client, because
Mm,
if a client doesn't have an analytical mind or an analytical team, they can't do analysis with AI effectively. The idea of the how or the why. If a
mhm,
client doesn't have a understanding of how marketing persuades, influences, and can manipulate and support a sales process, then I can't express those tools to them. The first step is always finding out what are their skill sets, what are they good at? Are there gaps that we can look at that can AI can help you access a skill set?
mhm,
For example, emails, not replacing your emails, but if I've got a really important email that I'm like, this has to be crafted a certain way, I may use AI to give me a boilerplate. And I'm like, perfect, I've got a starting point. That
mhm,
starting point is a really hard thing that stops people. That writing books, I got a blank page. I know what I want to say, but I just can't get it going. Doing emails is a great thing, or even writing copy, understanding what is writing copy. So it's not just producing content, it's understanding what you're communicating, understanding why that copy is used in certain ways, or even thinking through analysis. So thinking through my background's in SEO or search engine optimization, among many things.
Mhm.
First thing I did with ChatGPT back when it was a crappy model that didn't understand what was going on, I said, ChatGPT, here's just the text from the first page of Google. Show me what the main topics are of these websites that are ranking, how they compare to my website, and what motivational words are being used, or what types of persuasive things are they doing. That's an analytical mind that if you don't have that thought process, it's hard to think through what AI can do for you. So
mhm.
part of it's just envisioning what could AI actually do for us in our
Right.
company. Right? That's a really important thing, getting a vision for what it could do or understanding how it could work.
So what I'm hearing is it's not just plug and play. Like that,
No,
there's
it's
that myth,
definitely not
right?
plug and
Just
play.
plug and play. No, you got to think through the
Mhm.
entire process.
So to that point, when companies say, okay, what about this tool and what about that tool? And I'm like, well, let's go back to, let me teach you the DNA of what you're doing. So you're not
Mhm.
reliant on a tool that's going to go out of date in a week. Let me
Right.
teach you how to think so you can use any tool. So I'm very often using ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, the DNA, the core tools, or using local AI models. But
Mm,
I'm the one producing the work because I'm able to get what I want out of it. And part of that job with consulting is teaching companies, you've got the skills, like you've got the talent. Here's how you apply it this way. So sort of like a visionary. It's like, I'm the guide in your story. Let me walk you through how you could use this to apply your needs.
mm.
I was at a concert one time, or a concert, sorry, a conference.
Come on, sir.
Concert.
Rick,
I was at
I
a
didn't know this
concert
about you.
recently too. I saw Bob Dylan recently. Anyway, so that was another story. That's another Smarketing Show. I was also at a conference one time, and a guy was saying he was a AI expert. This is about 5 years ago, and he was explaining it to us. Now, I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of us in the room are like cavemen, right? Like, okay, AI, okay, how is this going to do? And I remember the guy saying, think of it this way, like the human is the painter, the AI is the paintbrush. So you need to just
Mhm.
figure out what you want to paint and then use the tool to kind of like what you're saying there.
Mhm.
I love that analogy. I talk
Yeah.
about a puzzle. You're really, AI a lot of times helps you put the pieces of the puzzle together, but you're still seeing the vision for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it says right below the search bar on search window on ChatGPT, like, basically I make mistakes, right? I can tell you, people ask me all the time, like, why don't you guys just use AI to whip everything together? And if we did, it would be a disaster. I mean,
That's the,
Absolutely.
it
that's
just,
the ignorance of of the public. And
Yeah.
that's where we have to educate them. And it's like that's so important, Rick, to understand that bar. And it's really light gray usually, or it's maybe black, but it's really small.
yeah.
And
Mhm.
people like, oh, it sounds so good. Well, the tool is designed to be communication based. It's designed
Yes.
to be a language that is not a real person. It's a machine that is doing
Right.
so many processes that seem so persuasively correct that if you don't have the right mindset and understanding of how do I view this information, you'll be swindled is the wrong thing, but it's like a snake oil salesman. It's going to
Mhm.
be so good. And you
Yes.
need to be able to have discernment and understanding of what it's doing. So you say, great, what did it give me? okay, what did that actually mean? Is that exactly what I was looking for, or is that not? So teaching students, as I say, a business as well, is if you don't know the output, it's really hard to get the input and the understanding of what to do.
How
I
do you
think,
marry that? So you're teaching at a university level, right? So you're
Yes.
teaching, intelligent young people that are entering the business world,
Yes.
and you're teaching them about AI, and then they're
Yes.
going to go into the business world, which in most cases they're going to start with, I'll generalize, a legacy business, maybe.
Yep.
And they're coming in like a juggernaut, and they meet the sludge of the corporate world, right? And like, how's that? Because I know a lot of the younger ones I work with are we'll call it up the curve a bit,
Yeah.
sometimes too far up the curve for their own good, but
Yeah.
um, like I'm like, no, that won't work. Okay,
now
like,
we'll know if they're watching this or not.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
soon as any comments back.
I know you did it in 2 seconds, but that's not the way we speak to that person. Um, but how are younger people handling that kind of, the grind kind of when they hit reality?
So this is blanket statement. Education's not set up for AI yet. So living in that world, education is process-based versus product-based, or production-based. Whereas in the real world, it's typically produce it, process is relevant but irrelevant. That's a big problem, and I'm blanket statementing here. So as students, I'm doing a lot of testing and research on not just teaching them the use of AI, but doing it in a way where they have understanding and discernment, understanding where it fits in what they're doing, so that when they become your employee, they're like, hey, Rick, hey, Melissa, I've got this idea. And you're like, go for it. And they're like, I've produced this. And they're like, okay, this is how I did it. And here's how it can help me. The idea of communication, the value of learning and thinking and critical thinking, in my opinion, is a part of education, or the most important thing. I tell my students, I would teach you the same way, whether it's basket weaving or marketing, it doesn't matter. You'll learn how to think. And I would hope that when students are so driven to like, hey, we should use this AI tool, it's like, well, how is it helping us there into communications? Like, how is this helping you do your job better? Right? And thinking through that process. And that's the tough thing, is students are
You
usually
can say it.
too,
You can say it.
they're too immature to understand
Yes.
the impact, and so eager to bypass the impact. And when you get to business, it's how do I protect this? How do I make this work for my clients versus just go and do it? And then it's trying to find that medium. So when I hired, so years ago, I was a production company, and I was a photographer, took over 1 million photos, did 136 weddings in 5 years. And the staff I hired on personality. Yes, they could shoot, but I hired on personality.
Yeah.
How do they think? Who are they as a person? So that I can teach anybody how to shoot, but I can't teach you to be you. So
That's
when I
right.
look at students, I want to teach them to have discernment. So when they leave our undergrad to do grad school or be your employee, they'll have discernment in saying, hey, if this is not what my boss wants, how do I work with this to fit with that team so I can integrate well? And then we'll adapt as we go along.
Yeah.
I
Hopefully that
thought your
makes sense.
point about process driven versus
Product.
product is very right on. Like, because I do see, I've got a 18-year-old son that's entering university, and he's got a summer job now, and he wants to inject AI, and they're like, hey, take it easy, we don't want to, so I just see the benefits and the threats. I mean, some of these young people too who don't understand, and I don't mean to speak in the wrong way if you're a young listener here, but uh, you need to understand business, I think, a little bit to know where you can put the supercharger in the engine, and
Absolutely.
where
Like
you
Matthew said, the business impact, right?
yeah.
They
You got
don't
to
always
know
think
there's
about the business impact. They're just
Not
like, let
easy.
me show you this shiny thing over here, you know?
exactly. The impact is everything, because your career is based off it. As a student, their grade is based off it.
That's
And
right.
they can still fail a course and come back. For you as a client, you ruin your business.
Yeah.
And that's one aspect for your audience here, is understanding, regardless of age, you have to understand the impact, and it goes back to the why. And it's I teach that so importantly. You have to understand the why, so you can galvanize your team. So if everyone's not on the same page, we can say, well, what's our mission, what's our vision, what's our why for doing this? We're using AI for these specific areas, or it's called a use statement. What are we using it for, and how does this fit in our cog of into communications, right? And that's a really important thing, because it galvanizes people together, so we know what we are doing collectively, so that when someone challenges it, hey, well, okay, well, that we're doing it for this reason. Here's how we're using it. And it's not a sexy way to look at it, but it's a critically foundational way to use it. That if you don't do it well, businesses are going to fail because they're trusting copy that's doing the wrong thing. And they're trusting a word that is incorrect because they haven't asked the right questions. They don't have the game plan. They don't know what they're doing.
I think the why is so true. And, we see the AI tools that we use, they're leapfrogging one another. Like you said, every 4 days. I mean, we're seeing it, probably every couple of weeks, almost like
It's
boom,
so close.
pops up. So do you have any coaching on, for a business leader, given the variety of AI tools, we'll call them, how to navigate and say, okay, these are the ones we should, hone in on versus, stay away from?
So I look at holes in the business first. What are you trying to fill? What hole are you trying to fill? And it shouldn't be, oh, we have to use AI. Then don't, if that's the goal, oh, we have to use AI, don't use AI until you realize there's a hole we have to fill or something, an area, a need we want to cover. Then I would say, what is that need? So for me, I only used ChatGPT at the beginning because it did everything I needed. I could produce, create, analyze tons of stuff until recently. Like that is like well over 100,000, like hundreds of thousands of interactions. So like know the tool, think through it. It is just a tool. Now I use ChatGPT for analysis and I use Claude for coding because I found Claude is a better coder. It develops much better. And it's the idea of understanding, well, what's the purpose of that tool? So I would recommend find a tool and stay in that lane. If you cannot extract value from that specific tool, then you shouldn't be using AI or that specific tool. I'd be very careful about trusting a third-party tool that's like on top of. So for example, I trying to think this too technically and keep it simple. So ChatGPT is just the way you access the AI. The chat is just the chat conversation. You can access the same AI tool with something called an API, an application process interface. It's a bit of code that you access the same tool, just a different way. The idea, though, is when you have applications, I built one called casegenerator.io, and it doesn't exist anymore. I played with it, but I built it on the ChatGPT API and the code. Why is this an important conversation? There's bias in things that are built into that. Every layer of a program you get away from the source, you have bias put into it. And if you're like, what do you mean bias? Well, that's built off of code. Like that's built off of information that's being trained on being the AI. So I always go back to ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini as a tool and say, can I create value from just this tool in a simple way? Create something, analyze something, develop something. They're extremely good, but they require you to think. And I would still get back to the basics because it requires you to understand the why. It requires you to understand the DNA. I would not shortcut the simple and go to a tool. Jasper's a great tool, or think of Grammarly as another tool. Those are tools that have things built in to make your life easier to create content. I can do just the same thing with ChatGPT or Claude. I can do more actually. And it's not, hey, look at me, but you know the why, so you're not going in many different directions. Long-winded answer, Rick, and I would say at the end of the day, find a tool and stick with it and say, until this tool does not do what I need.
Yeah, I found that like the more you work with the tool, the better you understand its capabilities, and it's like anything, and or tools that integrate with one another in a sequence of, we'll use ChatGPT, then we'll move it to Claude, then we'll actually move it around the shop a bit. It's not like we press a button and it comes out.
Absolutely.
Hey, you mentioned critical thinking a couple times, and how do you feel AI is affecting today's youth in terms of their ability to critically think? I mean, when I come home and my kid hits a button on AI and they've got their essay, ready to rock, and then they're worried the teacher's gonna, scan it with an AI scanner. But do you think the youth today are losing the ability to critically think given the tools available?
So yes and no. It depends on how they use it. And I go back to that why. But so for my students, for my clients, even for you as colleagues thinking through this, the way you use it determines the value you get out of it. So if you're using it to produce something quickly, you're not practicing the value or the skill set that would have taken to produce that before. So a simple way of looking is AI allows you to access content or access skills quite easily, but people don't gain them very often. In school, you're learning to gain a skill set versus just access it and produce it. So I feel that the youth of today, depending on the teachers, which are way behind the AI 8 ball, our students we're selfish beings that want things easy. They don't want it hard. And it would be a tough world to be as a student right now because the access to tools that teachers have no idea.
Mm.
And the idea behind creating content very easy. It's like, well, then I go back to my students. I go back all the time. Why are you here in school? Why are you here in post-secondary? And I've got studies and things I'm playing with. If they get published, I can talk about them. But the whole idea is that mindset. What is AI training? What's the byproduct of the use of reading AI content over and over and over again? How does that frame or form the way we think? So I think critically thinking, if you've got the skill set, you critically think already. And the scary part is AI gives you the output,
Mm.
which is usually a starting point. But for students or anyone not critically thinking, it's usually the end result versus the beginning. And that's the scary thing. It has to be a critically thinking process.
Right, because AI doesn't always get it right.
No, and it
Right.
hallucinates so
I was
often, but
just
it
going to
sounds
say
so
it
good.
hallucinates
So
and yes.
great example. So and like to this point, so hallucinations, they do a lot less. So I
Mm.
was teaching a course and I was building a module to tell my students that they can use AI. And I said, here is this section of our marketing and evaluation. And basically AI was producing something as I was talking and explaining and recording this video. And I said, now let's look at what it produced. And it actually completely hallucinated, unexpected, totally random, but perfect. And I said, perfect teaching moment. I said, our example for environmental analysis was this. We know that, but the AI said this, and it sounds extremely convincing. And the problem is, as a student, you don't have the maturity, discerning experience to say, oh, that's incorrect. If you took that as fact, which sounds perfect, you would now go a direction which would completely impact your understanding of learning, of what you're doing, of what you're here to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to the idea of how do you critically think and assess and check? Like any client I work with, I always say, how is this helping my client? Is this supporting you guys? Is this what you need? Is this what you're looking for? Does this help you in your business to achieve your goals? And I think for your 50 somethings or any business owner or young or old, AI is an amazing tool, but it's just a tool. It
That's
is
right.
not a replacement. It is there to amplify what you are doing, not replace what you're doing. It's there to help you if you want, and there are so many ways you can use it. But it's going to offload a skill set that what will you gain? More time? Will you gain more experience? Will you gain more clients? Are you ready for that? Do you need that? Is that in line with what you're trying to do?
You know, it's funny. We great answers, by the way. Thanks for
They're
joining us.
honest answers.
You got a lot. You got a lot of experience. I know. You know, I hosted a workshop recently, and we broke people up into employers, parents, students, and we were talking about, you know, what you're looking for to go to university or get a degree. And I was looking at the employer table, what they're looking for students coming out, and they listed the qualities that they want in a student. And surprising to me, I didn't see AI skill set anywhere on the list. And then if you flip that around, I'm yet to see AI on any resumes that we look at coming in. And I just think it's such a, you know, whatever, a elephant on the table or elephant in the room, and yet no one seems to be. I don't know if you know, I bring this up only because it's such a big piece of what we're doing right now. And I do see the schools behind, and I
Mhm,
empathize with the teachers because they got to teach probably to a certain framework or whatever it is. And
mhm.
this sucker's going 70, 80, 150 miles an hour now. And I don't know how they keep up with the kids, but anyway,
I
it's
think
funny you
they're
say that.
afraid. I think they're
They should
afraid,
be. They should
right?
be
Because it
because,
is a
well,
big animal to take down.
and,
Well,
and only because, and this is a foundational thing. So hear me as I say this. If we all had integrity, we would have no problems.
Mm.
So if a student said, I have integrity, I'm here to learn, I'm going to go through that process, we'd have no problems. If a
mm,
business owner said, I have staff that are amazing and we are here to benefit our clients and have integrity in that process and stand behind their work and do it with ethics and understanding and integrity, we would have no problem. If we had integrity, and I say we do, but as a society, we are fallen, we are not perfect, but that means we can work towards this. And the whole
Yeah.
idea is that that goes back to your why. Why are
Mhm.
you doing this? And I'm a sounding gong over and over again. But if you know why, you understand what you're doing, you can then think through that process to benefit your customers, benefit your clients, benefit your staff. And hopefully students will learn something. So when they get to you guys, they can be amazing contributions, not just we got to build you from scratch. I thought you have a degree, right?
Right, right,
And
right.
like used to be degrees is like you've persevered for 4 years,
mm,
and now it's changing where degrees are still that, but the promise of what a degree represents, everything that's baked in, is being challenged.
mm. Hey, you know, before we wrap up here, I do want to ask you a question.
Sure.
What, and because I know you've got deep experience in search engine optimization and AI, and so you're a unique skill set to me. The I was at a tech conference recently, and they were talking about when you create a new website and you
Hmm.
want to get found by search engines. I was talking to them about the difference from search engine optimization to search everywhere optimization, and someone said, "Hey, yeah, because Google's going down in terms of search." So I guess could you give me your perspective on, if you're a business owner and you've got a website, what should you
Hmm.
be thinking about when it comes to getting found by a customer searching for what you offer on these different platforms, inclusive of search engines like Google and or through AI platforms like ChatGPT?
Great, phenomenally good question. My first thing is always, where are your customers?
Mm.
And if they can't answer that, I'm like, that's your bigger problem. Because if you don't know where your customers are, your net can't be big enough to catch anybody. It's got to be there to catch the right ones. So when I did SEO years ago, and within the process, even currently, the most recent website I built was called teachingwithcases.com, and that was a tool that was a test, a tool, and I was competing with case study like Harvard University, like big places. And I said, okay, well, what can I capitalize on in the traditional SEO of certain words? So case study, prompt generation, free, and different keywords that played with that. And I ranked well and did well. And that tool is still doing well. But what I found is the idea of understanding where your customers are is the idea of search optimization within all aspects. I was testing with LinkedIn. I was testing with different tools and getting to where my customers are. I would think so, even more so now, because I think well over 40% of answers on Google are answered by AI. Well, then no website is usually going to get the traffic which they're usually trying to pull and get in to go to your website. Then the
Mhm.
question you have to say is, well, what's the purpose of our website? I
Mm.
know your past students that are working for you now, like that were they're phenomenal students that say, well, what's the purpose of the website in the business? If a
Mhm.
business can't answer what the website's purpose is in their business perspective and goals, then they have a dead website because they have no reason behind producing any content for it. And
Mhm.
SEO is just a way to get you to it. And
Mhm.
I think SEO, search engine optimization, well, what is a search engine? Typically, it was Google, it was Yahoo, it was Bing. Well, it's changing now with AI, and there's still tremendous value in optimizing, creating valuable content, addressing your customers, but doing it in a more strategic way where I would be like, hey, the different platforms, not every platform, but like, where are your customers? So going to LinkedIn, I can see boosts in traffic and they were motivated people, or going to my email list and developing that email list. Like email is not dead. It is so valuable
Mhm.
because you don't have cold leads, you've got hot leads. You've got
Mhm.
people
Absolutely.
who are attentively interested in what you're doing. So
Mhm.
if I was building a brand new business right now and built a website, I would make sure I say, great, where are the customers I'm looking for? And I would very intuitively create content saying, what's the purpose of my website in my business? And make
Mhm.
sure it addresses that purpose very well. So when the right people find me, they're going to be motivated to do whatever my goal is for them in that website. Does that
So
help at all? Because it was a bit
Yeah.
winded, but it went a certain direction.
No, no,
no,
absolutely.
if you're a B2B website, what would you say if you had to look at a pie breakdown and say, okay, these are the typical sources of traffic to a B2B site? What would you say that percentile breakdown looks like today, if I may ask? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it depends. So that really, there's not a blanket because it comes down to what they're investing their time in. So,
Mm.
speaking to the most recent website I was doing, first it was like 70 organic, then it was 20 direct, and then it was a bit of video, a bit of social, a bit of so on, and then a bit of email within that. And then I was watching it change because I said I'm not going to build the website. I'm just going to leave it and see what happens. Well,
Mhm.
the organic started to drop and the direct started to change, and I'm starting to get consistent traffic. And okay, well, there are people going directly, which is typically not good, but I have a specific purpose for that website. They come to me for a specific thing that they
Hmm.
use over and over again. Whereas if I had an information-based website that is there to collectively invest and capture their attention, I would say,
Hmm.
well, then where am I getting in front of customers? So I think direct is not bad. And I think direct might go up more, but you have to understand time on page. You have to understand the amount of actions, the interactions are doing on your website. So if direct doesn't just represent people directly going and bouncing off, it's no, people are seeing me as a resource because they're not getting it from Google. They're getting it from some other place and they're going back to you every single time.
Yeah.
Organic was the premium. It was free work you're getting out of the whole process. I think organic is going to change because search engines are changing and organic will drop. But if you invest a lot of time in social media, then you might see, oh, organic video or organic social, which is not a bad thing. It just proves that you're getting search from there. I think direct is not a bad thing. And in years past, what I mean by that is direct traffic was not valuable traffic typically, because people were getting one thing and leaving. And the idea now is this has to be vetted and checked and obviously validated over years to come. But I think direct is better because people might be able to trust where they're getting information from. And I feel like you do a good job. You may get more direct traffic because people are going there back to you because they know you, if that's the purpose of the website. If you're there to just inform people, it's a very different thing. Back on and off, right? If you're there to have their attention captured because you're providing a tool they're going back to, you're going to have more direct traffic. Yeah. But it really comes down to the blanket of what you're doing for your company.
Yeah, no, totally. And, we direct traffic's, someone that obviously knows you and they're coming to you for direct purpose. We're trying to hunt for new customers for our clients. And we're seeing, I would say, web traffic right now, roughly 4% is coming from AI. And I see that growing, like we saw the emergence, we'll call it a mobile. Back in the day, mobile was like in the low teens. Now it's, much more. And so I was interested in your thought there because we're watching that, and go ahead.
I've got one thing. So I got a good friend of mine. He owns an East Trough company, and it's his fun part-time job. And he's done it for about 4 years now, and he just is the essence of great business. He's got a specific niche, does it exceptionally well. He's got a website that sucks, and he says, Matt, but I rank well. And I said, how did you do that? He goes, well, Google reviews are something that is something I push for. He goes, I've got companies that have been around in Brantford for 30 years and I'm killing them on search. And I said, how are you doing that? He goes, well, I just realized that the value of that conversation through Google, that endorsement, that I have 65 5-star reviews and they've got 4 and they've been around for 30 years. And I said, yeah, that makes sense. Because if you think of AI is simulating the concept of human interaction in the value of information, well, what social cues are people focusing on? I would make sure that every customer that I wowed and created that value exchange for and really did a good job, I would hope they would endorse me, which they would do verbally anyways, but through Google, through those other platforms that are validation things for AI to look at and say, hey, this is an indicator that is saying this person's a really good tool or a good job. They're doing a good job. Let's actually endorse them. Yeah, like I don't know that conundrum of how would you rank for AI, because my brain is.
We love your Google review push. We love that.
Yes, Google review is very valuable.
We push it all the time.
Thank you for saying that, because we're big on that.
Yes.
Third-party validation, especially in the B2B sector. But
100%.
You've been awesome today, buddy.
So great. I think we could have about 25 more episodes this week. You're like a wealth of knowledge here.
The Matthew Schonewille Show.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I'm just humbled to help. I'm taking away big. I'm taking a whole bunch of things away, but all I'm thinking is we are AI enhanced humans, right? Yes,
that's it.
There you go. There you go.
The human needs to totally be there. We're just enhanced.
Yeah.
Right? It's just a compliment.
Next time.
Well, and thank you for platforms like this to share, to grow, to help, because your audience listening, they're getting tremendous value, whether they acknowledge it right now or not. So thank you for providing that platform, to provide places for this to work. So thank you.
Well, soon we'll just be 3 avatars talking on here.
I joked about that with Melissa. I said, wait a second here, are you real?
Because Rick, you talked about how many books he's written and all the stuff he does. I said, do you have a family? Like, how do you have time? He's like, I'm really good at time management. I go, or you have an avatar. You send it into story time with your kids.
There you go.
Anyway, Matthew, it's been awesome today. Thank you so much. And if someone is wondering, how do we find Matthew? Where do they find you?
Well, there are a couple of different places. The first thing is on LinkedIn. It's basically Matthew Schonewille, and we'll make sure in the show notes my name is spelled correctly there because it's pretty long. LinkedIn's a great place. On one of the websites I do focus on in building, it's called AItraining101.com. That is a plethora of resources. Now, it may not be all business. It's usually focused on education, but still supporting the use of AI, and it's ever growing and developing. And another place too is you can just, well, I always say the university is a place you can go, but let's leave it as LinkedIn or AItraining101.com is a great place.
Awesome.
Connect with me that way.
Awesome. This has been great. Thank you so much, Rick. Thank you, Matthew. And until next time, we'll see you. Thanks.
Good job, buddy. Thanks for what you're doing for business leaders and tomorrow's business leaders for the students. We all need it. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.